You're listening to the Love Over Addiction podcast. Hey, how are you? How are you doing this week? Today we are going to talk about one of the key traits of loving someone suffering from addiction that a key trait that your loved one might have. And this key trait I am taking from a book, one of my all-time favorites. And if you're a reader or you like listening to books on audio, I highly recommend. It's called Marriage on the Rocks. I love the title, Marriage on the Rocks. It was written a while back. It might actually even be out of print, come to think of it, which is a terrible recommendation to give you if you can't get it. But don't worry, I use this book a lot as a reference point. In fact, when I was married to a good man struggling with addiction, I still remember the oversized brown chair that I put in the corner with a little reading lamp in my living room. And I got this book. Amazon was not around back then, so I don't know where I got it. But I got this book and I would take out my highlighter. And I remember when the kids were in school and he was at work, I would sit down in this brown leather chair in the corner and open up the book and hope and pray that there's some sort of answer in there to tell me how to get my husband sober. So I still have all my old notes because you guys know I like to highlight and write in the margins all over my books. And now I look at my notes and I'm like, oh, poor girl. Poor girl. She really was desperate to make things better. I tried so hard. And I know that you try just as hard, if not harder than I did. I know that. I know you are working your little tushy off to try and save your family, to try and get the one you love help so that they can get better and you can be happy and they can be happy and they can live up to the person that you know that they can be. I also know if you've left and you've filed for divorce or you've moved out and separated, I know you are looking for answers on how to get your life back on track and how to feel normal again. And I know you come here listening with heavy hearts. I know that. And I love that you are here. I am so honored. I think about you all the time. And I think back to how I felt sitting in that brown chair in the corner, just desperately looking for answers. So hopefully I'm going to provide some for you today. And we're going to talk about something that I learned in this book that I think is really, really helpful. So the book is called Marriage on the Rocks, Learning to Live with Yourself and an Alcoholic. And it's a terrific book. It's an easy read. And she talks at the very beginning on page 12 about excessive dependency. All right. Now, what does that mean? She goes through a list of character traits that your loved one might have if they are struggling with addiction. And the first one she discusses is, she, meaning the author, her name is Janet. Janet discusses one of the first traits is excessive dependency. Oh my gosh, why can I not talk right now, guys? And so, for some of you out there, you might be reading that and thinking, wait. I'm the one that feels completely dependent on my alcoholic or person struggling with addiction, whatever their addiction is. You might be thinking, I'm the codependent one. I'm the one that's constantly, seeking love and approval from my loved one. I'm the one walking on eggshells, hoping to please and to solve and to fix my loved one. I am the one that's codependent. They're not dependent on me. In fact, I would argue that they're completely independent because they don't clearly care how I feel about their drinking or drug use or addiction because they continue to do it. They completely disregard my feelings. They lie to me. all the time. They leave without telling me where they're going or promise me they're going to get better and then never do. They're completely independent. In fact, I wish they were more dependent on me, because if they were more dependent on me, they might care more and they might choose me over drinking or drug use. They might actually quit and get sober. So that's how I felt when I read the excessive dependency. I was like, what? That sounds more like me than my husband. But let me explain what she means, because I actually think this might be true. She has a good point. Basically, she's saying excessive dependency is a key characteristic trait of the person you love, because they refuse to take responsibility for their behavior. In other words, it's much easier if you do the work than they do, because then if it goes wrong or doesn't work out the right way, they get to blame you. They get to sit there and say, look at you, you messed it up. If you had tried harder, if you had done this better, if you paid more attention, if you were smarter, this wouldn't have happened. This mess wouldn't have been created, right? And so you, as their partner, is sitting here going, oh, you're right, I am stupid. Your self-esteem goes down. Your confidence goes down, because part of you believes, even though you don't want to, that all of the negative traits they're saying to describe you is right. Part of you secretly thinks they must be right. And that is where this disease is rotten and evil and yucky and awful, because it can take really smart individuals who are very responsible, like you. You are a very responsible human being. You are incredibly smart and intelligent. You feel things on a deep level. You are very sensitive. I bet you are super fun. At least you were back in the day before you involved yourself with someone struggling with addiction. I bet you are an excellent, excellent partner to be with. But this disease is rotten because it convinces you aren't. And there is a very vulnerable secret side to you that no matter how strong or powerful you might feel in some moments, there's that little nagging self-doubt inside your head saying, I wonder if they're right, or maybe they are right. And you start to believe that negative voice, right? That voice of addiction is what we call it. And that's why I'm here. I say it all the time. I'm here to be your friend and to lovingly remind you that that voice is a liar, and that voice is only there to serve the purpose of continuing to create addiction in your family. That's the only reason that voice says that. It has nothing to do with you. They'd say that to anybody. The reason why that voice is so strong and so powerful and says so many horrible things is to keep you under control. Because if you were not under control, the control of addiction, if you were an independent person, an independent thinker, you would be able to make decisions from a place of strength, not from a place of insecurity. And do you know what a place of strength looks like? It looks like you putting very strong boundaries in place of your relationship. It makes you love from a distance. It makes you, independence allows you to love with realistic expectations. Independence helps you become a free thinker. And you can decide and lead your life, whether you choose to stay or whether you choose to go, as a very happy, self-controlled human being that is no longer under the illusion and the power that addiction tries to create in your life. So when your loved one has excessive dependency, it basically means that they are trying to give you more responsibility than you should take. So let's break this down. Let's give you realistic examples. Let's really apply this to your life. Now, remember, we're not in my living room having this personal conversation. So when you do a podcast and you talk to many people, you kind of have to oversimplify in order to make sense of things. So if the examples I'm about to give you don't apply to you, that's okay. Then just recreate them so that they do apply to you, all right? But let's say you have kids, for example, and let's say they have a soccer game that's scheduled on a Saturday afternoon. Well, in an ideal situation where there are two parents, active, involved parents in a relationship with this child, whether you're together or not, whether you're divorced or not, doesn't matter, but there are two parents. The parents would equally divide up the responsibilities of supporting the child's soccer tournament. So maybe one parent would pack the bags, right? And this is assuming your child is young enough so they can't pack their own bags. But you grab the duffel bag and you pack it with a water bottle and one of those Powerade gel thing packs, whatever. I don't know. I'm not a runner. Or a soccer player. I don't use those. You put extra set of socks in there with some cleats and some shin guards. And you've got the bag. Like, you are prepared, right? Well, maybe your other partner sits there and says, okay, you've covered preparing for the child. Let me prepare by covering for us, supplying needs for us. So I'll get the lawn chairs and I'll get the blankets and I'll fill up some water bottles for us. And then either if you're married, you you suggest to put the date of the soccer game on the calendar and you send out a family invite to your family calendar. And maybe your loved one the night before sits there and says, oh, don't forget we have the soccer game at 12, so I'm going to wake up at 9 and make a really good breakfast. Do you see how this is going? Both people are independently supporting the goal of the family goal of getting this child to their soccer game and supporting that child as a family. But it's a give and take. Now, that's a very healthy model where both parents are actively involved. A more realistic version, if you love someone struggling with addiction, is you. You, as the supportive parent, are doing all of the manual labor. You are the one packing the duffel bag. You are the one bringing extra chairs for your loved one. You are the one sending out the calendar reminder. You are the one sitting there the night before saying, hey, don't forget, we've got a soccer game tomorrow. And you are the one waking up extra early and making sure everybody's fed and well rested before the game. All the responsibility lies on you. That scenario is your loved one who's struggling with addiction is displaying excessive dependency. Do you understand? I think it makes sense, right? Pretty basic. In other words, you are left feeling completely exhausted, worn out, and resentful because you're doing all the work. Because they're being excessively dependent on you picking up after their life, organizing their life for them, doing all of the tasks that they don't want to do. And then you get to the soccer game and let's say you forget something and all of a sudden it's your fault. And you sit there thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? If you were to help me, maybe I wouldn't have forgotten something. You get angry. But then there's that secret voice, that little silent voice in your head that says, damn it, I should have remembered. I forgot. Totally my bad. So it's this conflict, right? It's this conundrum where you have this righteous anger and you're like, wait, what? Do not blame me. This is partly your responsibility. If I had more support in my life and everything didn't rely on me to remember and hold everything together, we would be just fine if I had some more support. But then there's this conflicting part of you that wants to take on more responsibility and thinks it's really your fault. And it's this verbal dialogue that goes in your head back and forth between anger and frustration and then self-doubt and shame. And it goes back and forth. And here's what it results in: exhaustion, complete depletion, like emptiness, a deep, deep emptiness, because you don't know what to believe, and you don't know what you're entitled to, and you don't know what's fair anymore. You don't know if you should believe the voice of addiction or your own voice. You don't know if it's fair to expect a partner to participate in the way that you want them to. You're doubting all of your needs and your desires and what you think is right. And that can be just absolutely exhausting. Leave you feeling lonely and empty. So I'm here as your loving, loving friend to come alongside of you and tell you from the deepest part of me and say it is not your fault. And it is not entirely up to you to make everything good all of the time. If you want to go to that soccer game and you want to bring the chairs and make the breakfast and remember the shin guards, that is great. But if you are frustrated because you agreed to have a child with another human being and that human being is not living up to their part of their agreement, it is okay for you to be upset about it. It is okay for you to be disappointed. You get to decide if you want to continue in this partnership with the way things are going. Or you get to decide if you've had enough. And you know what? You'd rather do it on your own and quit being disappointed by this person. Or you want to go on a hunt and look for somebody else who you think can better support you. Right? That's your choice. But I just want to lovingly say to you and remind you to give back responsibility that does not belong to you if you can. I know in this scenario that I just gave you with the soccer situation, I know I was a single mom. I had to do it all the time. I didn't have a partner I could rely on for anything. And when I was married to a very good man who struggled with addiction, I couldn't sit there, no matter how reasonable of a conversation I could have with him, to say, this is what I need from you. I need you to show up at teacher-parent conferences. I need you to take responsibility for paying our bills on time because the lights are going out, or we don't have air conditioning, or I need you to take responsibility to help me clean up the house a little, to put away your laundry, to clean a bathroom or a toilet. Help me. I understand that no matter how reasonable of a request I was making, it was that need, that request was never going to be met. Because I was dealing with a guy who struggled with addiction, and he didn't want to be independent. He didn't want to take responsibility. He couldn't take responsibility because he was sick, because he was unwell. So I am not sitting here saying that it is reasonable to give back all of the responsibility in your life because you're like, Michelle, hey, bills need to get paid. Stuff needs to get done. And if I don't do it, he's not going to, or they're not going to, or she's not going to. Okay, so here's what I'm going to say. And you know that I always am like telling you to do some homework. And I do that because we have to make this practical for you. We can't just make this some podcast that you listen to and then nothing changes. I always want to provide you exercises so that you can actually take your life, take a look at your life, make your own choices, come up with your own opinions, And so here's your homework for today. I want you to make a list of all the responsibilities that you cover. And I know that list is going to be long because I know you do it all. I know you do. I know how capable you are. I know how determined of a human being you are. So make a list. Jot it all down. Everything that comes to mind. Household, financial, children, relational, families, birthdays, all of it, physical, all of the things you can think of. And then go through your list and just try to come up with 5 things that you can stop and give back responsibility to. But those 5 things have to be things where if they don't get done, it's not really going to rock the boat, right? They have to be things that you can wipe off your plate. Because the problem is, when you try so hard all the time to be all things to all people and fix everything and take more and more and more responsibility, it will exhaust you. You are running on an empty tank, sweet pea, and you can't do that because you're always going to end up being behind and angry and resentful. So you cannot continue to run at this rate in life and allowing somebody in your life, whether you're with them or not, whether you love them or not, to continue to use you to take on too much responsibility. And this might not just be your loved one that's doing this. You might have a pattern here where your boss is doing this with you, or your kids are doing this with you, or your parents are doing this with you. You might be the person who everyone turns to and says, hey, would you mind? Can you do? And you might be like, oh, of course, because you don't want to disappoint. You don't want to make people mad. And you would want someone to do it for you, wouldn't you? But the problem is that it really does leave you feeling empty, and it's not your job. So we're going to take a look today. The goal is to give back responsibility to other people who can handle it, right? So this might mean you take a look at your kids and say, you know what? I'm actually going to give you some more responsibility. I'm going to teach you how to pack your soccer bag the night before every game. And I'll make a little checklist for you with some boxes, and we'll stick it to the door. And before every soccer game, you can look through the list and you can make sure your bag is packed. How about that? How about we start teaching the people around us to take accountability and responsibility for their things? We're empowering, in this example, our kids. And that's a great thing, because even kids as young as 5 and 6 can learn how to do chores. My kids were doing chores at 2 years old. So let's take a look at our list of responsibilities and delegate. Or just say, you know what? I'm going to put off that responsibility for the next 6 months, 9 months, and the world isn't going to fall apart. No one's going to die. It might not be the most responsible thing to do, but for my mental health and physical health, I need to wipe it off my list right now. And most importantly, you guys, it teaches us when we give back responsibility to other people who are using us, because they know that we'll say yes. It not only frees us, but it teaches other people not to continue to turn to us when they should be doing the work themselves. Right? It creates a really healthy, strong boundary to say, you know, I'm just not going to allow myself to be used all the time. I'm going to think before I say yes, or I'm going to constantly take self-inventory of my responsibilities and ask myself, am I taking care of too much? How do I feel about what I have on my plate? Am I having enough fun in my life? Am I abandoning myself to care for somebody else? These are all very important questions. And the truth of the matter is, whether you decide to stay or leave, they're good questions to ask, even if you don't love someone struggling with addiction. And only you can answer them. So this is just my loving reminder to you to say, please be gentle with yourself. Be kind. You don't have to do it all. Don't be all things to everyone. It's okay if people are mad at you. It's okay if you ruffle somebody's feathers. It's okay if you say, thank you, but no, I'm not going to do that anymore. That's okay. You're still a good person. You're still loving. You're still incredibly thoughtful. You're still very caring. You're still nurturing. You're not losing yourself. You're actually embracing yourself. You're loving yourself. You're nurturing and caring for you first, which is how you are able to be so nurturing and loving and caring to other people. It's really incredible when we take inventory of our lives and start to say, you know what? I'm going to start taking care of myself better by stopping taking care of everybody else. I know that sounds incredibly scary to you. It did to me too. I wanted so badly to be needed by people because I thought if I wasn't needed, I didn't have any value. I didn't have any worth, right? I kept waiting so much for my ex-husband to see how hard I was working, to finally wake up and go, oh my gosh, I've been putting so much strain on you because I've been avoiding taking responsibility. I've been giving it all to you. Look how hard you're working. Look how great you're doing. And then magically he would get sober and we would live happily ever after, right? I'd finally get my acknowledgement. I'd finally be seen by him, be appreciated by him, be loved by him. That's all that I wanted. And my life didn't get better, and I didn't start to feel healed until I actually stopped waiting for that from him, and I started getting that from myself. I started to see, wait, I don't have to do, first of all this stuff in anticipation that someone will give me a gold star. Instead, I can stop doing what I don't want to do anymore. For the most part, there's still obviously many things I had to do because it's part of being a grown-up and an adult, which is actually what we're going to talk about next. In the next podcast is another trait that our loved ones have while suffering from addiction is emotional immaturity. But we won't get to that this podcast. Just this episode, I just wanted to say that, I didn't start to feel better until I really started just taking care of myself and saying no, and then really recognizing the gifts that I bring to the table, whether he was recognizing them or not. And I recognize the gifts you bring to the table. I know. I believe in you 110%. I don't think that you need some big change and to change 5 things about yourself in order to become wonderful. I think you're wonderful now. I just think you're with somebody who doesn't recognize that. But I do. And I know you're going to be okay. I believe in you. And I'll talk to you next week. This podcast is created for your support, encouragement, and entertainment with my personal thoughts and beliefs. We are bonded together by the fact that we love someone suffering from addiction. This is not intended as a substitute for therapy or advice from a professional.